Hey guys and girls, how's it going? So this is my Dragon Age Origins, the story so far, short edition version, because the other video I did was 54 minutes long, which was an in-depth detail of all the decisions that I made. This one's going to be much shorter, just to highlight sort of the main overarching story, everything that happens, all the decisions that's made. So this video is basically aimed at those people that want to play Dragon Age Inquisition, like I said, but haven't played the first game or the second game and want to know roughly what the story is all about. Suffice it to say, there are lots of spoilers in this video, so let's get started. So the overarching theme of Dragon Age Origins is there is this Blight, which is basically the Darkspawn and the archdemon, which is this giant dragon that leads the Darkspawn, that's attacking the world, that's attacking the world of men, elves, dwarves, trying to destroy everything. It happens every 400 years. So in Origins, you're in the middle of the 5th Blight. In this game, I chose the human noble rogue class female character. My main character's name was Elisa Kuzlan. She's from a noble family of High Eva, one of the most respected noble families in Ferelden. At the beginning of the game, you get to meet her father, her mother, her family, who pledged their support to King Cailan in his fight against the Blight. Unfortunately for the family, they are betrayed by a close friend, a guy called Al Rendon Howe, that actually betrays them and attacks them overnight while their troops are away with King Cailan. Elisa escapes from the castle with a Grey Warden, Duncan, but her mother and her father unfortunately do die and perish in that. Elisa then travels with Duncan to Ostagar, and Duncan basically wants to swear her in as a Grey Warden. The Grey Wardens are specialist sort of mercenary troops that are skilled in fighting the Darkspawn, and one way that they do this is going through something called the joining, which Elisa does in Ostagar, where she drinks Darkspawn blood. Now, it can prove fatal, and what basically happens is when that blood mixes with your own, it causes a taint, a corruption. If you survive that corruption, you are actually connected to the Darkspawn. You are able to sense them, and you are able to kill the archdemon, and you also sort of get nightmares and dreams where you can sort of see what they're doing or what they're planning. It's quite useful. But Elisa is one of is pretty much the only survivor of her joining. The other two that were there sadly do die, but she survives it, and while at Ostagar as well, she meets a fellow Grey Warden by the name of Alistair, who's been a Grey Warden not for a very long time, but they do meet at Ostagar. Now, while at Ostagar, there's a huge battle that takes place against the Darkspawn, led by King Cailan and Duncan and his Grey Wardens on the main force. You are tasked with the duty of lighting a beacon, which will give a signal to Loghain to actually send reinforcements and sort of flank the troops, from the side. Anyway, you light the beacon, but Tern Loghain betrays the king and doesn't send his troops to support him. King Cailan dies, Duncan dies, you get wounded, but you get rescued by a witch called Flemeth, and she has a daughter called Morrigan. She basically rescues you, tells you what happened at the battle. Alice is devastated because all his brothers and Duncan, his mentor, died, but Flemeth rescues you, and then you basically decide at this point that you have these treaties that all the different races have to support, signed to support the Grey Wardens when a Blight occurred, and you will go out and basically form an army to take on the Blight, and then you and Alistair will take down the archdemon as the only two remaining Grey Wardens left. Morrigan basically agrees to join your party at the behest of her mother Flemeth, who is this old witch. There's a lot of mystery around her. We don't really know what her motives are, but Morrigan joins you anyway. She's a very powerful witch, very cynical. Love her character. She's really really funny and witty, but yeah, she's very powerful as well. And she joins your party. You then go to Lothering to seek information and supplies. While at Lothering, you get 2 new companions. You get Liliana, who basically is a chantry sister. The chantry is basically the church of Ferelden. She used to be a spy and a bard, but something happened in her past that she felt very bad about, and she's joined the chantry to find peace and to find some meaning. She basically joins your party because she's had a vision, and she believes that this shows that she needs to help you. Sten is different. He's a Kunari. He's actually locked up in a cell at the time for murdering a family. You manage to free him, and he basically agrees to come with you to find atonement for his crime. You then go to Redcliffe Castle to seek the aid of Earl Eamon, who is King Caelin's uncle. Now, Earl Eamon, unfortunately, is very, very sick and is near to death, and the village is under attack from these undead monsters which are coming out of the castle. You fight your way into the castle to find out where they're coming from, and discover that the son of the Earl, a young boy called Connor, was actually quite skilled in magic, and he was being trained by a blood mage, but his magic has gone awry and he has been possessed by a demon. So you then go, in order to cure him, you need the help of mages. So you go to the Circle of Magi to try to find help to cure Connor. When at the Circle of Magi at the tower, you discover that they have their own problems, and that actually the entire tower is infested with monsters and abominations and mages that have been corrupted and have been turned into monsters, as well as mages that are fighting for their lives. The Templars have cut off the tower. These Templars are basically there to control the mages, and their job is to chase down any mages that have gone rogue, that are practicing blood magic. So they want to basically kill all the mages in the tower. You convince them to let you go inside to try and resolve the issue first before they decide to do that. You go into the tower, and when there, you actually meet up with a new companion, an older woman called Wynne. She is a good mage, I guess. She's been circle magi for a while. She's quite elderly, and she practices sort of the lighter arts, so to speak. And you fight your way through the circle tower, fight your way through demons, fight a sloth monster, and ultimately face down a blood mage, a mage that has gone bad by the name of Aldred, that has been corrupting mages and turning them into monsters, into abominations for his own sort of power and gain. You end up having to fight Aldred and kill him inevitably, but it does devastate the mages, and sadly they're not able to help you, but the Templars do agree to support you and send troops when you are fighting the Blight later on in the game. So you go back to Redcliffe Castle, sadly revealing the news that you weren't able to get the help of the mages, and instead agree to perform a blood ritual, which is done by the blood mage, where you will send Morrigan into the Fade, into the spirit realm, to fight the demon in its demon form and kill it. And Morrigan will do this, but in order to send her there, you have to do a blood sacrifice, and Connor's mother agrees to sacrifice her own life, and she loses her life. Morrigan goes into the Fade, defeats the demon and kills it, saving Connor. However, Earl Eamon is still sick because he's been poisoned by Loghain, and the only thing that can cure him is called the Urn of Sacred Ashes. So you go to find the urn, and you chase down Brother Genitivi in Denerim, and you chase him down to a village called Haven, which has kind of been taken over by this cult that's worshipping this sort of high dragon and preventing people from sort of finding the sacred urn of ashes and killing anybody that comes into the village. You've ultimately find where the ashes are kept after fighting your way through dragons and monsters and spiders and everything, and you get to where the urn is, and you meet the guardian, and you have to go through 3 trials to prove that you are worthy of seeing the sacred urn. I got through all 3 trials, proved myself worthy, and took a pinch of the ashes, left the urn untouched, and then went back to Redcliffe Castle, where I was able to cure Earl Eamon, who then promised to support me in the fight against the Blight, and also to support me in trying to face off against Loghain. So then my last goal was to get the 2 remaining races onto my side. So first I started with the Dalish elves. I went to the Dalish elves, but they're quite isolationist and distrustful of humans because they've been treated quite poorly in the past and been sort of forced into indentured servitude and slavery. But the leader of the elves, a guy called Zathrian, will not support you until you help him deal with a curse that the elves are facing where they turn into werewolves. You go into the forest to try to track down the main leader called Witherfang, who Zathrian wants you to kill. When you get there, you meet the lady of the forest, who actually reveals that Zathrian is the one that put the curse on them, and that the original curse was against humans that had killed and raped had killed his son and raped his daughter, and the curse originally came from him. After fighting Zathran, you actually managed to convince him to release the curse and give up his own life, as well as the life of the spirit, to release this curse on the humans, which he does do so, feeling bad about what he had done. The curse is released, the werewolves disappear, and the elves ultimately agree to help you in your fight against the Blight. Then you go to see the dwarfs in Ozamar. Now, the dwarfs at this time have a problem because they don't have a king, and only the king can agree to support you, and only the king is connected to the treaties. But the dwarfs have no king because their king, King Endrin, has actually died, and there are 2 main people vying for the throne, Prince Balin and Lord Haramont. And you must decide who to side with. Now, ultimately, I sided with Prince Balon, and I had to do 3 tasks for him to prove my worth. The first task was delivering letters to nobles. The second task was to take out a criminal sort of mafia carter. And the third task was to track down a important person, a paragon called Branka, to get her support for Prince Balin, because she's very well respected. So we have to track her down, and she's sort of lost in the deep wilds, and she's looking for something called the Anvil of the Void, which is a special anvil which is used to forge golems, which are very powerful and would make the dwarves great again. When fighting through the caves, you fight lots of darkspawn through it, because it's darkspawn infested, the deep roads is where they come from, and you fight your way through. You meet and find Bronca, but she first wants you to get to the Anvil of the Void, and to do this you of course have to go through 3 trials, which I went through, very similar to the Sacred Urn. Succeeded in all of them. They involved fighting darkspawn, fighting golems, and fighting this giant face that turns. Got through all 3 trials, and I actually ended up meeting Caradin, who was the person who created the Anvil of the Void. Caradin used to be a dwarf but had been turned into a golem. Now at this point you had to make a choice, because Caradin wanted to destroy the Anvil of the Void, because in order to make golems you had to sacrifice, to create life you had to sacrifice the life of another dwarf, and Caradin did not want the anvil to be used for this anymore. Branka, however, wanted to keep the anvil and to use it to make the dwarves powerful again. I decided to side with Caradin. Branka didn't like it and ended up having to fight her, and ultimately I ended up having to kill her. Caradin, in gratitude, made a gold crown for the king, the future king, and I destroyed the anvil as promised. Then I went back to King Balin, the new King Balin, who was sworn in as king with the new crown, and he agreed to send his troops to support me. At the same time, I gained a new party member called Ogren, who is a dwarf, and he joined my team. Then we went to the landsmeet. Now, once getting all our armies together, Earl Eamon basically travels to Denerim with you and decides to call the landsmeet. At this point, it's all about political intrigue, and you have to get nobles to agree to support you by doing tasks and helping them. And also at this point as well, you actually are involved in the rescue mission to rescue Queen Anora from Earl Howe, who had killed your family. Now, Queen Anora was the widowed wife of King Caelan and the daughter of Earl of Tern Logain, and she was being held captive in Earl Howe's estate. You basically break in by changing, in disguise. You have to kill How and exact revenge, and then kill the mage and are able to free Anora. Unfortunately, you are captured in the process. However, you are again then rescued by your companions Liliana and Wynne. Then you go back and you talk to Queen Anora, and you talk to Alistair and also Eamon. Now at this point, Alistair is the half brother of King Caelan. He was actually the bastard son of the previous king, King Merrick, and as such he's the only remaining bloodline tie, real heir to the throne. So you basically at this point I had romanced Alistair, because for me it just made sense with them both being Grey Wardens and having all the experiences and history together, and it made sense for that to sort of blossom into love. So I was romancing Alistair at this time, but I decided that my character was one that placed duty above everything else, and so I convinced Anora and Alistair that they should marry in order to ensure peace in Ferelden. The landsmeet is then called, and the nobles are back and forth, supporting Loghain, and then Anora walks in and betrays me. She lied to my face and went then and betrayed me and called me a traitor. So I basically, everything went south. I ultimately had to fight Tern Loghain. I had to fight him in a one-on-one combat. I defeated him ultimately, and then I decided to kill him as a traitor for betraying King Caelan and also betraying the Grey Wardens. So I killed him, and I decided to lock Queen Anora into a tower, and I decided that she didn't deserve Alistair, she didn't deserve the crown, and instead I decided that I would marry the man I love. I would marry Alistair, and I would become Queen of Ferelden and leader of his armies. And that's what I decided to do. So then it goes to the final battle. So in the final battle, we sort of went to Redcliffe Castle first, and Riordan, a Grey Warden, basically reveals the fate of a Grey Warden who slays the archdemon. If you kill the archdemon, the demon's soul transfers into you, and it's too much for a human to take and will ultimately prove fatal. So Riordan basically revealed that it would be fatal for either you or Alistair to strike the final blow. So it did seem that at the end of the game would be this sort of tragic, heroine that died to save the world. But actually Morrigan gives you an alternative, and she basically says that the only way to possibly stop that happening is to do a dark ritual where she will sleep with Alistair and will conceive a child, which is conceived from the dark spawn blood in his blood, and once you slay the archdemon, the soul of that demon, of that old god, will actually go into that child, giving that child special abilities that can be taught, can be trained. He doesn't have to become evil and corrupted depending on how he's raised. Ultimately I decided to go with that ritual and agreed to go with it, to do it. And so Alistair and Morrigan do actually end up sleeping together, and she conceives a child supposedly. Now a lot of people are speculating whether the Inquisitor in Inquisition is actually that child, the product of that sort of dark ritual, because he's come out of the Fade, and he might very well, Morrigan's in it too, so it should be interesting to see. So that we basically agreed to do that, and Morrigan at the end of the battle disappears into the mist. Now the final battle then is where we go to Denerim and we fight our way through. So with all my companions and the armies that I've collected, the dwarves, the Templars, the mages, the dwarves, the Templars, the elves, the Redcliffe soldiers, we all fight our way through hordes of darkspawn, orcs, dragons, and ultimately fight the archdemon on the roof of Fort Dracon, and after a grueling fight manage to kill the archdemon, which destroys the roof, causes a massive sonic blast, destroys the archdemon, put a stop to the blight, and then survive. So obviously Morrigan's dark ritual worked, and my Grey Warden and Alistair survived the fight, Alistair at the end of the game becomes king of Ferelden, and I become his queen and also leader of the armies. All my companions survived as well. Wynne chooses to stay with me. Sten goes back to the Kunari. Liliana decides to go back to being a spy and a bard, and decides to go back to Orlais to chase down somebody from her past called Marjolaine. And yeah, and so that pretty much is the end of Dragon Age Origins. That is the story of Dragon Age Origins, told very, very quickly in a nutshell. Hope you guys were able to follow that and did enjoy it anyway. Please let me know what you thought in the comment section below. I do have two videos, this short one and my much longer, more in-depth one. It's up to you, you know, which one you prefer. If you like this one but you'd like to know more detail on my thoughts at different points, please check out my longer video as well. Please hit that like button if you did enjoy this and you found it useful. Comment below, let me know what choices you made in the game, because as I say, everybody's experiences are different in Dragon Age games because of the fact it's a BioWare game. If this is the first video that you've seen on my channel and you really enjoyed it, please hit that like button to show your support, and also subscribe. Alright guys and girls, have a great day, take care, and as always, happy gaming.